Hi, I'm back again. Sorry about the helicopter overhead. I'm wearing my headphones trying to knock out some of this ambient noise, but I wanted to briefly talk about the title that I picked for this talk, that happy people cheat too. And I picked that title specifically because another one of the traps that we fall into is believing that, hi, Rick, is believing that cheating happens because there's something wrong in the relationship. Well, I did a little bit of research on this a while ago and I checked it out again before I came on tonight, and the numbers have actually increased. So, in a recent survey of several thousand admitted cheaters, these are people who actually said they cheated. 56% of men and 34% of women who characterized themselves as happy, very happy in their relationships, also admitted to cheating. So just let that settle in for a minute. Those are some big numbers. Those are some very big numbers, particularly for people who classify themselves as happy in their relationships, meaning that most of what they want in a relationship they're already getting, and they cheated anyway. 56% men, 34% women. So what does that say? How does that work into how we work out our relationships? Well, the fact is that a lot of what people say they would do in that situation isn't what they actually do. That's one thing that it says. That's people who say that they would end their relationships if infidelity became an issue, most often don't. Once they're actually put into that situation, most often not. Most of the people that you hear saying that they would just walk away if infidelity was an issue, they haven't been in the situation. And a lot of people who are in the situation are the ones you don't hear from at all. So suffice it to say, what people promote and what they actually do are often two very different things. So don't get caught up in the media hype, because if you're counting on the media hype to be your guidebook for what's actually going on in people's lives, you'll be misinformed, misdirected, hoodwinked, bamboozled, led astray, and all that good stuff, because it's not actually what's happening. And the fact is, in most long-term relationships, some form of infidelity has been an issue, and it's been an issue more than once. It may not proceed all the way to a physical sexual affair, but I have worked with couples personally that split up over internet porn, over emotional affairs. There are so many different ways to violate the privacy and the intimacy of a relationship without actually touching anyone. And so, because this is such a big, pervasive issue, what's going on, P? Holding it down in Detroit. Thanks for coming in. Thank you, Shantae. I'm going to tell my hair doctor what you said. But I had to talk about this because it is such a huge issue. And people have such visceral responses when you mention infidelity. Many, especially from people who are on the betrayed end. Those of us who have actually been betrayed often climb up on the highest of high horses and shout to the moon how violated we are and how victimized we've been and how wrong it was and all of that. And it's easy to see how that can happen. It's very easy to see how that can happen, because if you are caught up in your own expectations, which are many times unreasonable to start with, but you believe them and you actually expect them to turn out the way that you expect them to turn out, and then they don't, it can be devastating. It is devastating, especially if you're married, because you stand there and you promise God and all these other people that you're going to be in this forever, and till death do you part anyway. And that, as we both know, is more and more rare as the times continue to change. We wouldn't have divorce statistics over 50% otherwise. But that's what we have, because till death do us part is unreasonable, particularly if you're someone who got married in your 20s. The fact is that you will have 2 to 3 significant intimate relationships in your life, even if they are with the same person. What do I mean by that? I mean that even if you got married in your 20s and you stayed married into your 50s or beyond, your marriage has changed significantly 2 to 3 times easily, just because of the issues that you've had to deal with together. When you get married in your 20s, there's a lot of stuff that just hasn't happened yet. But by the time you get to 50 or beyond, you've dealt with the ailing parents. You've dealt with the raising of children. You've dealt with job losses and business failures and foreclosures or bankruptcy. You've dealt with the scary doctor's reports. You have dealt with a lot of things that can rewrite your entire way of seeing the world, which means it changes fundamentally who you are. And that's not the same person that you were when you made that promise to stay there until death do you part. So if you can't make these changes in a way that complements each other, if you can't make these changes in a harmonious way, in a way that actually serves the two of you rather than tears you apart, then till death do us part is unreasonable. And most people do not consider that before they stand there and make that promise. They don't consider the reality of it because they're all caught up in the emotionalism and the romance. How many times have you heard people talk about a little girl dreams about this day her whole life, and this is her special day, and she gets to be the center of the world. She is the pivot upon which the universe turns on her wedding day. We built whole industries and reality TV shows around bridezillas, which is basically just an offshoot of the whole idea that it's all about her. This is her day. This is her time. This is her. Since she was 5 years old, she's been playing house and having tea parties and rocking baby dolls and all of that stuff that men never do, by the way. Hello? That's another video. Men don't get into it like that. And that's why men see it so much differently than women often see it. And, well, I'm going off on a tangent. Please forgive me. I'll get back to that later. But suffice it to say, cheating is about a lot more than unhappiness in a relationship. A lot of times, cheating happens not because the partner is dissatisfied with their mate. What they're dissatisfied with is themselves. That's why they typically don't leave. They're not looking for another mate. They're looking for another experience of themselves. They're looking many times to recreate how they felt at the beginning of the relationship that they have with their mates. But they are clueless about how to recreate that with their mate because it takes too much work and because they've been through too much stuff, and they don't actually put in the effort to be new to each other again. And since they think they've got each other all figured out, and in many ways they might, they do. You spend 20, 30 years with somebody, you know their patterns. But unless you're willing to interrupt the patterns, then you'll remain stuck. And the only way that they see out of being stuck, or the easiest way they see out of being stuck, is to drag a new person into the mix, which only complicates things further in the end. And we all know that, because once the orgasms are over and you roll out of the wet spot, you got a bigger mess on your hands than some new laundry. Hello. Anyway, I brought this subject up tonight because I'm creating something to go a lot more in depth with this topic, because it is so big, and because people do get married oftentimes without even considering it. And a lot of people who never got married never talked about it, and they never do talk about it until they suspect that it's already happening. Just as an example, quickly, before I leave you for tonight, once I was talking to a couple that wasn't married, and I just asked the question, well, how do you deal with it when your mate is feeling an attraction to another person? No, correction. I said, could you tell your mate if you were feeling an attraction to another person? And universally, the answer was, are you kidding? Have you lost your mind? They would go crazy. And then came the scroll about all the different ways they would go crazy, and they would never tolerate it, and it would just be ridiculous after that, and it was just more headache than they wanted to deal with. So the way that they dealt with it was to cheat and lie and hide and secret, and that just ultimately made everything worse. But it seemed like a good idea at the time, so they did it. Until you can be in a relationship where you can actually be honest. See, people pay lip service to that whole honesty thing until it's time to actually be honest. Until your mate can come to you and say, you know what, I really am feeling drawn to this person. I need to work this out. Like, how do we work this out? Is this, and at that time, if you really want to work the relationship out, there's a way to do it without bringing in another person. So it depends on your approach and how you see it. I will let you know when I finish creating my product about this, because it is a big topic. So stay tuned. Thanks for tuning in. It's cold out here and I'm gonna go now. But thank you again for tuning in. It's my second time today, so it's been kind of busy. But I will be back. Have a wonderful Sunday night. Enjoy your week. I love you totally. Bye-bye.